Welcome to our presentation. Our topic will be on European history. Today we'll be talking about the nations of France and Italy, as well as their journey through European history and how they have grown into great nations. We shall share our information chronologically, meaning that at some times we might focus on one nation rather than another.
According to legend, Rome was founded on April 21st, 753 BCE, by Romulus and Remus, twin brothers who believed that they were the sons of the god of war, Mars. But eventually, one brother, being Romulus, became very jealous with Remus and murdered his brother in cold blood.
In the 7th century BCE, the Celt people began to travel into modern-day France from modern-day Germany. These people were called Gauls by the Romans and their lands, Gaul.
In 264 BCE, there was the beginning of a war called the Punic War. There were a total of 3 Punic Wars, lasting until 146 BCE, that being nearly a century-long period of war. Hannibal invaded Italy during 202 BCE.
Between 57 to 52 BCE, Julius Caesar conquered southern and central Gaul.
269 BCE, Rome began to grow bigger and started to develop a coin currency. The Romans began to conquer city-states in 133 BCE. In 100 BCE, Julius Caesar was born. He later became one of the most powerful generals of Rome. Later in 46 BCE, he became a dictator and had no plans to restore the public. In 44 BCE, he made many enemies, and later in the year he was stabbed to death during a Senate meeting.
In the 5th century CE, the Franks invaded from the north, in modern-day Normandy, and conquered all of Gaul from the Western Roman Empire. The Treaty of Verdun, 863, split Charlemagne's empire between his 3 grandsons, establishing the Kingdom of West Francia, or modern-day France.
In 300 AD, Christianity began to become more popular. Under the Constantine's I rule, he granted freedom of worship.
By 987, the Chapet line ascended to the throne, marking a period of military expansion for France. In 1328, King Philip VI ascended to the throne, ending 350 years of Chapet rule. Philip introduced the Valois to the French throne and leading more French expeditions. Conflict arose between the Valois France and Plantagenet England as they came into conflict over continental France.
The spiritual and also non-religious force, the popes began to have a major influence on the early stages of Italy. The church gained control of the Romans' surrounding territories. They teamed up with the Byzantines, who had a very strong army, and in the year 800 AD, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne the title of Holy Roman Emperor.
In 1338, war broke out, and thus the 100 Years' War began. The war got off to a bad start and continued in England's favor until the French were eventually able to beat the English out of France. The Bourbons took the throne, and France grew into more of a powerhouse.
For the next many years, there were several long-going clashes between the popes and the emperor.
As the Bourbons rose to power, more and more French sailed the Atlantic for the New World. Colonies in modern-day Quebec, Canada, had already been established. Other locations, such as the Caribbean and India, would be under French colonization throughout the 18th century.
Very long extended period of time, the northern part of Italy being independent, not conjoined with the Holy Roman Empire's forces to become a larger nation. During 1100 AD, the northern independent part of Italy attempted a parliamentary system, but it did not end up working out, so this attempt eventually ended in the 1400s.
When the Spanish king died childless, he gave everything to his French heir, King Louis XIV. This formed a Western European superpower, the Franco-Spanish Union. The rest of Europe was outraged by King Louis's actions. The summer of 1701 brought with it the War of Spanish Succession. Led by Austria, the coalition fought the Franco-Spanish Union for 12 years. Peace came at last in 1713 when Louis finally found his country exhausted and outnumbered.
Then, war became more and more apparent, and it was happening a lot of the time. City-states battled for powers of the nation. European countries and noble families began to fight as well. The Eastern Roman Empire fell in 1453, and the Church took control and dominated Rome and its past citizens for many years into the 18th century.
These wars came at once, and the French kings did not deal with the economic issues that arose. A national assembly was established, and things were getting out of hand. After a reign of terror, revolutionary France emerged to defeat the enemies of the First Coalition.
In the 14th through 16th centuries, the Renaissance began. These pieces of art were made from stone, paint, and bronze, making the achievements of this art history for the Italians in Europe. A lot of the art was created in this time was going to churches and other large, important buildings. Architecture was not changed very much from the European customs from other countries, but they did start changing a more modern look for churches and some other homes and government buildings.
The Revolutionary Wars, or Wars of the First and Second Coalitions, included Napoleon rising to command and the defeat by the coalition. The Napoleonic Wars, the Wars of the Third to the Sixth Coalitions, included Napoleon's rise and fall of power, such as the Battle of Austerlitz, his crowning as emperor, as well as the Peninsular Campaign in Spain and his campaign into Russia, losing a mass amount of men. Napoleon was banished to both Elba and St. Helena, losing the Battle of Waterloo and being banished permanently for the latter. With the rise and fall of both the Second Republic and the Second Empire, France began European imperialism throughout the world. Soon, the Great War, or World War I, was fought, costing France of many resources. World War II was in the same manner of World War I. Many nations were defeated, including France. However, Germany did surrender, and France eventually re-emerged.
In World War I, Italy was neutral in the beginning, but eventually declared war on Austria-Hungarian Empire on April 1995. In World War II, they again remained to be one of the neutral states, until declaring war on France and England. What do you think is the most important period in French history?
I would say the period around the French Revolution.
What do you think is the most important period in Italian history?
That's a little bit trickier. I would probably say the Renaissance, the 15th century.
What is the Europeans' greatest strength and weakness?
I'd say the greatest strength of Europe is its common cultural heritage. All the European countries have a lot more in common than they differ. And I would say the greatest weakness is probably people continuing to hold on to nationalist ideas.